Here.
Yes, I'm. Good morning, everyone. Can everybody hear me okay?
Okay.
My name is Lindsay Bohan. I am the lead planner for our VOCA funding source, VOCA Victim Assistance under the Crime Victim Services team. And then also presenting with me is Keon.
I'm Keon Ash. I'm on the Criminal Justice Improvement team, and I'm a criminal justice planner.
We'll be going over, of course, the general calendar and review process for our 2026 application. Keon, go ahead.
I'm ready.
Sorry, just 1 second. It was not.
All right, this will be a quick overview.
You're just one second, Keon. It wasn't sharing the presenting screen. Just a moment.
Okay, no problem. Wow. All right, you ready, Lindsay?
Go ahead, Keon. You're good.
All right, take two. No. Okay. All right. This is a quick overview of our grant award calendar. As you know, this calendar can be changed. It might be changed. It will be changed. However, this is something we're going to give the sub-recipients to let them know where we stand in the calendar. All right, December 1st to January 31st, the EBS application period for all funding sources. In April, the committee will review and score. May, committees vote. In June, the commission votes and applicants notifications. July to September, modification review and project awards. October 1st, agreements open, all except juvenile justice. In January 1st, juvenile justice projects open. Next slide, Lindsay. All right, December 1st to January 31st is the EBS application period. During this time, all the priorities are open and available in EBS. You will have GCC staff available to answer applications related questions. Deadline for submission is at 11:59 p.m. on January 31st. During the time, you need to determine your authorizing official. You need to determine your financial officer and your project director for the agency and the project. You must set up an NCID for each person. Set up EBS. Review required attachments and register on SAMS for your UEI. Preliminary review prior to scoring. Applications meet eligibility criteria. Application instructions in the RFA must be followed. Assessment of allowable and activities and costs. Submission under correct program priority. That's very important. You must submit under the correct program priority. You will learn more about that later on in the workshop. Required attachments are uploaded and named as instructed in the RFA. and project period aligns with funding sources, 1 year, 2 year, or 3 years. Lindsay?
Sure, thank you. In April, we look at, of course, the committee's reviewing and scoring of a few different things depending on the funding source, of course, and where everybody is at in their application cycle. But applications that pass preliminary review phase are then sent to the GCC committees for review and scoring. So if you applied for a VOCA grant, for example, that is under our Crime Victim Services Committee. So those go to our Crime Victim Services Committee for review and scoring. So they're looking at the full review of the application concept and budget, including who will benefit from the grant, how many will benefit from the grant, the cost, of course, of administering the grant itself, the geographical representation illustrated by the subrecipient who is applying, the past performance of the applicant with grants and publicly funded projects. So of course, we have to be looking at the history that we have in regards to funding agencies, as well as any sort of issue that we might have as far as our suspension funding or anything like that could impact our ability to fund an applicant. So typically on each committee, there are 3 reviewers at a minimum per application. And then the average score of the reviewers determines the overall application score. And then each applications are ranked in score order within each priority. So you, of course, your score is only compared within that same priority that you've applied to, not any sort of broader priority or across funding sources. The slides are lagging today. So in May, typically the committees will vote. They will review application scores by priority under each of the funding source committees. They will assess the geographical and the needs-specific reach of the project throughout the state, in an attempt to, of course, ensure that there is a broad scope of coverage for these priorities and programs. And then discussing the scored application and making recommendations for the application or priority specific adjustments. So, for example, if we received 20 applications under one priority and none of them were over in Eastern North Carolina, maybe that's scored high enough. We need to be looking at certain pieces and parts to ensure that we are getting the broad coverage and scope of these grants and the agencies applying. And then they're going to be voting on application funding with recommendations, of course, agreed to by the committee. So staff makes recommendations. We have a discussion with the committee. The committee then discusses amongst themselves and they make a vote depending, and they all agree and vote on recommendations. Then in June, the full commission will vote, and application notifications are typically as quickly as we can make them after that. So they review the application funding and recommendations provided by the committees all together from all of the committees. They determine if additional application or priority specific adjustments are required. They vote on the application funding with the recommendations agreed to by the commission. And then applicants are advised of the outcome of the review process through automated notification email. And that typically looks like either an approved funding, approved with cuts funding, or a declined or not funded project. Then from July to September, we typically have our modification conditions review and move into our project awards. So the planners themselves for each funding source review assigned applications for compliance with our federal and state funding guidelines, as well as application requirements. Modifications notices are then sent to the applicants to communicate any required adjustments, whether it be to the application itself or whether it be to attachment documents or required documents like the where we have them shifted into the Power DMS, like our executive director showed you at the beginning. We're looking to make sure all of those forms are completed and they are correct as well. So the applicants will make the required adjustments and resubmit the application through EBS along with the completed forms. And then planners review the applications for the completion of required changes and review forms. So we've been in that process for a little bit now. So you are probably familiar with us at this point, receiving those modifications back to us and potentially sending them back to you. If we went through the list and maybe they weren't completed fully or partially, or maybe there was additional items that were noticed as we moved through the review process, or based on additional questions that subrecipients might have had during the modification process. Then upon completion of all of our modifications, award letters containing the binding award documents, the federal and state special conditions, and any additional documentation requirements are sent to applicants. We've been utilizing DocuSign for this process, and we have a process that has been coordinated inside EBS to be able to send these out. I will caution that we have seen and we have heard feedback that that folks have been receiving their documents either in their spam, or their agencies may have security settings that are extra cautious about anything that sends to them with an attachment, like this would, as far as DocuSign for signing and having the award documents on it. So just to keep an eye out on those particular pieces that potentially might cause an issue in regards to receiving it. But the award document will be signed first by GCC's executive director. And then they also require the signatures of the authorizing official and project director. Another piece of what we were seeing, especially as we've been moving through the implementation of our subrecipient profiles and the shift in where to access the documents, is we've had folks either misspell something in an email or not have the most recent updated email in the system. So just making sure that, even if you're sure that the right person is listed as these individuals, as these project officials in EBS, just making sure that those emails are correct and updated through EBS's processes to ensure that these documents that are incredibly important and have to be signed before we can actually open the award are being accessed and are going to the right people. And so these completed award packets are required to be returned to GCC within 30 days. Mind you, you can absolutely return them to us quicker or as quickly as you would like to have them signed. So it is not a requirement that you wait the 30-day process, that's for sure. And then the completed award packets are reviewed by GCC staff for compliance, just to make sure all of the T's are crossed, I's are dotted, and then once again, all awards are sent via DocuSign. So your award letter will be delivered by email. And once again, we are utilizing the information, project director information, communication that we're having is illustrated in the application itself, and then the officials, the authorizing official, and the project director are illustrated in the subrecipient profile. So we want to make sure that those items are always up to date, so that we're sending to the correct contacts. And in fact, you have to have your EBS GCC access as well. So, and that can take some time. So just being aware of all these pieces and parts, that they have to kind of be lined up to make sure that everything is as smooth as possible. And then, of course, October 1st, ideally, is your agreement start date. And of course, that depends on the period of performance that is illustrated in the grant application cycle that you have completed. So organizations transition to working with their assigned grant administrator. New organizations will be assigned their grant administrator, which was formerly referred to as their grant manager. Organizations who have worked with us before typically will work with or be assigned with a grant administrator that they've worked with before, but that's not always the case. And then grant administration Approval is required for contracts and travel related agreement spending prior to the expenditure of funds. That's why your planner works diligently with folks to get contracts, templates, pre-contract forms uploaded beforehand, so that your grant administrator has everything that they need to look over. And then agreement funds cannot be expended prior to the start date for your period of performance of August 1st. So even if your award, I believe Caroline advises, like if your award start date is October 1st, and of course you can begin expending funds for that grant from October 1st forward, but nothing prior to that if that is not your period of performance. And that, I believe, I was not checking the time, so I do not know if that was over or not. So my apologies, but if there's any questions in the chat in regards to anything that we've just reviewed.
I don't see any questions in the chat. And you're not over time, so